I should have said no when Ryan asked me to come with him that weekend. Looking back, that was the moment everything quietly tilted off balance, even though nothing had technically happened yet. Ryan and I had been best friends since our first year of college. We met during orientation when I dropped my folder and papers scattered across the hallway. While everyone else stepped over them, Ryan crouched down beside me without hesitation. "You're going to need these," he had said, grinning like it was the most obvious thing in the world. That was Ryan, effortlessly kind, disarming, the kind of person people trusted without realizing they were doing it. When I came out halfway through that semester, Ryan didn't flinch. He didn't make a speech or treat me differently. He just shrugged and said, "You're still Ethan." That simple sentence meant more than any dramatic declaration of support. From then on, we were inseparable: late-night study sessions, early gym mornings, long drives with no destination. Ryan was the steady presence in my life, and I told myself that was enough. There was a time, early on, when I had to confront an inconvenient truth: I had feelings for him. They weren't loud or reckless, but they were real. I buried them the way you bury something fragile, carefully, deliberately. Ryan was straight. More than that, he was my best friend. I convinced myself that protecting our friendship mattered more than indulging in what could never be. Then Sophie entered the picture. Ryan met Sophie at a mutual friend's birthday dinner. He told me about her the next morning at the gym, trying, and failing, to sound casual. "She's different," he said, adjusting the weights more aggressively than necessary. "She actually listens." I remember smiling, telling him I was happy for him, and meaning it. Sophie was warm, thoughtful, and far more perceptive than Ryan realized. When he introduced us, she hugged me like we'd known each other for years. What made Sophie dangerous, in a way neither of them saw, was how comfortable she was with me. I wasn't a threat. I was Ethan, the gay best friend. She encouraged Ryan to spend time with me. She thanked me for looking out for him. Sometimes she even joked that she was glad Ryan had someone like me in his life. I never corrected her. Their relationship moved quickly. Weekend trips, matching bracelets, whispered conversations in corners of rooms. Ryan seemed happy, but there were moments, small ones, when his expression shifted. After parties, when it was just the two of us driving home, he'd grow quiet. Once, at a red light, he said, "Do you ever feel like you're playing a version of yourself people expect?" I didn't know how to answer that. Months passed, and something subtle began to change. Ryan started calling me more often, not just to hang out, but to talk. About pressure, about expectations, about how Sophie wanted clarity about their future. He never complained about her directly, but the weight in his voice was new. Then, one Thursday evening, he showed up at my apartment unannounced. He looked restless, like he'd been pacing before deciding to drive over. "Come with me this weekend," Ryan said, leaning against my kitchen counter. "My uncle's cabin. Just us. I need to get away for a couple days." I hesitated. "What about Sophie?" "She can't come. Family thing." He ran a hand through his hair. I don't want to be alone right now." Quote. There was something in the way he said it, raw, unfiltered, that pulled at me. This wasn't the confident, easygoing Ryan everyone else saw. This was the version he only showed when the walls came down. "You sure that's a good idea?" I asked quietly. Ryan met my eyes, and for a second the room felt smaller. "It's just you, Ethan. You're the one person who doesn't make things complicated." That sentence should have unsettled me more than it did. I told myself it was harmless. Two friends escaping the noise of the city. A weekend reset. That was all. Sophie even texted me later that night, a cheerful message about how grateful she was that Ryan had someone to clear his head with. I stared at her message longer than necessary before replying. Saturday came faster than expected. As we drove out of the city, the skyline shrinking in the rearview mirror, the air inside the car felt charged with something I couldn't name. Ryan kept glancing at me like he wanted to say something but thought better of it. Halfway through the drive, he turned down the music and said softly, "I don't know what I'd do without you." The words lingered between us, heavier than they should have been. I smiled, but my chest tightened. Because deep down, I knew this weekend wasn't about escaping. It was about confronting something neither of us had been brave enough to define. And I had just agreed to walk straight into it. The cabin was smaller than I expected. It sat at the edge of a quiet lake, wrapped in tall pines that swallowed the afternoon light. The isolation was immediate, no neighboring houses, no passing cars, barely any signal on our phones. Ryan unlocked the door and exhaled like he had finally reached somewhere safe. Perfect, he muttered, stepping inside. The space was simple, one bedroom, a pull-out couch, a stone fireplace, and wide windows overlooking the water. It felt intimate in a way that made me instantly aware of how alone we were. Ryan tossed his bag onto the couch and stretched, his t-shirt riding up slightly as if he'd forgotten I was watching. "Feels good to get away," he said. I nodded, placing my bag by the wall. "From Sophie." Ryan didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked to the window and stared out at the lake. "From everything." That word lingered. We spent the first hour unpacking and settling in, moving around each other in a quiet rhythm that felt familiar. When Ryan brushed past me in the narrow kitchen, his shoulder lingered just a fraction too long. I told myself it was nothing. Cabins were small, space was limited. By evening, the sky had darkened into a soft gray, and rain began tapping against the roof. Ryan lit the fireplace, the orange glow casting restless shadows across the walls. With no signal and nowhere else to go, we sat on the floor with 2 glasses of whiskey he'd brought from home. For a while, we talked about safe things, work, mutual friends, gym routines. But Ryan's energy was restless. He kept adjusting his position, running his hands through his hair, like he was circling something heavier. Finally, he said, "Sophie wants to talk about moving in together." I looked at him carefully. "And you don't?" Ryan stared into his glass. "I don't know." The vulnerability in his voice unsettled me more than any confession could have. Ryan had always been decisive, almost stubbornly certain about what he wanted. Doubt didn't fit him. "She's good to me," he continued. "She deserves someone who's sure." "Are you not sure about her?" I asked. Ryan hesitated, then met my eyes. "I'm not sure about myself." The rain intensified outside, filling the silence he left behind. My pulse quickened, though I wasn't entirely sure why. There was something in his tone, an undercurrent that felt less about Sophie and more about something unnamed. "You ever feel like you're playing a role?" Ryan asked quietly. "Like people see you one way, and you just go along with it?" The question felt pointed. "I felt that," I admitted carefully. Ryan shifted closer, resting his back against the couch instead of the wall. "You're lucky, you know. You figured yourself out. You don't have to pretend." I almost laughed at the irony. If only he knew how much pretending I'd done to sit here without crossing a line. "I didn't figure it out overnight," I said. "It took honesty. With myself first." Ryan's gaze held mine longer than necessary. The firelight softened his features, but his expression was intense, searching. "What if being honest ruins everything?" The question hung between us like smoke. "It depends," I replied, choosing my words with care. "Ruins what?" Ryan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached for the bottle and poured more whiskey into both glasses. His hand brushed mine as he passed it to me. This time, neither of us moved away quickly. The air felt heavier. "You ever think," Ryan said slowly, "that maybe life's more complicated than labels?" My throat tightened. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. "Sometimes." He studied me as if trying to read something beneath my calm expression. The cabin felt smaller with every second. Outside, the rain created a cocoon of sound, sealing us inside this moment. "I trust you more than anyone," Ryan said softly. There it was again, that intimacy disguised as friendship. "You're my best friend," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. Ryan shifted closer, close enough that our knees brushed. Neither of us acknowledged it. His hand rested on the floor beside mine, fingers barely grazing. The contact was accidental at first, then deliberate when he didn't pull away. "Ethan," he murmured, and my name sounded different in his mouth, less casual, more careful. I should have moved. I should have created space. Instead, I stayed perfectly still, aware that whatever happened next would not be something we could undo. Ryan's fingers curled slightly, not gripping, just anchoring. His breathing slowed, matching mine. The tension wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, deliberate, undeniable. For a split second, I saw uncertainty flicker across his face. Then resolve. He didn't lean in. He didn't say anything reckless. But he didn't let go either. And somehow, that felt like the real beginning. Morning arrived without warmth. I woke to the pale grey light filtering through the cabin windows and the distant sound of water brushing against the dock. For a few seconds, I convinced myself the night before had been exaggerated by firelight and whiskey. Then I noticed Ryan wasn't on the couch anymore. He stood outside near the lake, hands shoved into the pockets of his hoodie, staring at nothing in particular. His posture was rigid, like he'd been standing there for a long time. I stepped out onto the porch. "You're up early." Ryan glanced over his shoulder. His expression was neutral, carefully arranged. "Couldn't sleep." Neither could I. Inside, we moved around each other cautiously, the easy rhythm from yesterday replaced with distance. Ryan busied himself making coffee, avoiding my eyes. I sat at the small table, watching the steam rise from my mug, aware of everything we weren't saying. It might have stayed that way, silent, unfinished, if Sophie hadn't called. Ryan's phone vibrated against the counter. He hesitated before answering. "Hey." I couldn't hear Sophie's words, but I could see the shift in Ryan's face. His jaw tightened. He paced toward the window. "No, I'm fine," he said quickly. "I just needed space." A pause. "I'm not pulling away," he added, though his tone lacked conviction. Another pause, longer this time. Ryan ran a hand through his hair. "I don't know what you want me to say, Soph." The nickname felt intimate. It twisted something inside me. "I said I'd think about it," he snapped suddenly. "I can't make a decision overnight." Silence followed, then a softer tone. "I care about you. I just—" He stopped. His gaze drifted toward me. "I'll call you later," he finished, ending the conversation. The cabin felt smaller again. Ryan stood there for a moment, phone still in his hand, as if unsure what to do next. When he finally looked at me, the composure he'd been clinging to cracked. "She wants certainty," he said quietly. "She deserves it," I replied, even though the words tasted bitter. Ryan gave a humorless laugh. "You sound like her." "I'm not taking sides." He stepped closer, frustration simmering beneath the surface. "You don't get it, Ethan. She talks about moving in together like it's simple. Like I'm supposed to just know." "Know what?" I asked. "If this is my future." His voice wavered slightly, revealing something raw beneath the irritation. I stood up slowly, careful not to escalate the tension. "Then maybe you need to figure out why you're unsure," I said. Ryan's eyes locked onto mine, intense and searching. "What if the reason makes everything worse?" The question landed heavily. "Worse for who?" I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped forward, closing the distance between us. Close enough that I could feel the warmth of him, the conflict radiating off his skin. "You said honesty matters," Ryan murmured. "What if being honest changes how people see me?" "It might," I admitted. "But pretending won't fix it." Ryan exhaled sharply, as if he'd been holding his breath for months. "You make it sound easy." "It's not." The space between us dissolved entirely when he reached for me, not abruptly, not carelessly, but with hesitation. His hand rested on my arm, steadying himself more than claiming me. "I don't know what this means," he said, his voice low. Neither did I. I should have stepped back. Sophie's face flashed in my mind, her easy smile, her trust. But Ryan's vulnerability pulled harder than my restraint. "You don't have to label it right now," I said softly. Ryan searched my face for permission I never should have given. And then he leaned in. The kiss wasn't dramatic. It wasn't fueled by passion or impulse. It was quiet and uncertain, a collision of confusion and curiosity. For a second, neither of us moved. The world didn't shatter. There were no fireworks, just the unmistakable crossing of a boundary we both knew existed. Ryan pulled back first. His breathing was uneven. His eyes flickered with something between shock and recognition. "We can't," he said quickly. I nodded, though my pulse was racing. "I know." Silence swallowed us again, thicker than before. Ryan stepped away as if distance could rewind time. He ran both hands through his hair, pacing once across the small living room. "This doesn't mean," he started, then stopped. "I don't even know what it means." "It means you're confused," I said carefully. "And you're not?" he asked. The question cut deeper than he intended. "I've always known who I am," I replied. "The problem is pretending I don't feel anything." Ryan stared at me, absorbing that. The weight of it, the implication. He looked toward the door, toward the lake, anywhere but at me. "We don't tell Sophie." It wasn't a request. It was fear. I didn't argue, not because I agreed, but because I understood the panic behind it. An hour later, we packed in near silence. The drive back felt longer than the one out. Ryan kept both hands tight on the steering wheel, eyes fixed on the road. Somewhere between the trees and the highway, I realized something irreversible had happened, not just between us, but inside me. We hadn't just crossed a line. We had erased it, and neither of us knew what would replace it. The first thing Ryan did when we got back wasn't to talk about what happened. It was to disappear. For 3 days, I heard almost nothing from him. No late-night texts, no gym invites, no casual memes sent at midnight like nothing had shifted. When I finally saw his name flash across my phone, it wasn't relief I felt, it was dread. "Can we talk?" Ryan asked. We met at our usual coffee shop, the same corner table where we'd spent countless afternoons dissecting everything from exams to relationships. Now the familiarity felt like a cruel contrast to the tension sitting between us. Ryan looked exhausted. Dark circles framed his eyes, and his usual ease was replaced with restraint. "I told Sophie," he said without preamble. The words knocked the air from my lungs. "You told her, what exactly?" Ryan swallowed. "That I was confused. That something happened." My heart pounded. "Did you tell her it was me?" He hesitated. "Yes." The single word carried weight. Not just because Sophie now knew, but because secrecy, the thin shield he'd insisted on, was gone. "How did she take it?" I asked quietly. Ryan let out a brittle laugh. "How do you think?" I pictured Sophie's face, the warmth she'd always shown me. The trust. I felt it collapse in my chest. "She asked if I've ever felt that way before," Ryan continued. I didn't know how to answer. "And what did you say?" "That I don't know what I feel." The honesty stung more than anger would have. "So what happens now?" I asked. Ryan stared at the untouched coffee in front of him. "She said she needs space." Space. The same word he'd used before the cabin. Only this time, it wasn't an escape. It was consequence. "You hurt her," I said gently. "I know." His voice cracked slightly. "But I didn't plan this." "Neither had I." Ryan finally met my eyes. "Did you?" The question was unfair, but I understood it. He was searching for blame that wasn't entirely his own. "I planned on being your friend," I replied. "That's it." Silence settled between us again, heavier than ever. "I keep replaying it," Ryan admitted. "Trying to figure out if it meant something, or if it was just pressure." "And?" I asked. He looked away. "I don't know." There it was again, the uncertainty that defined him now. "I can't be your experiment, Ryan," I said carefully. "I can't be the thing you try on when you're confused." His jaw tightened. "That's not what you are." "Then what am I?" He didn't answer. The absence of an answer told me more than any confession could have. Over the next week, the distance between us grew deliberate. Ryan stopped coming to the gym when he knew I'd be there. Sophie unfollowed me online without sending a message. The quiet fallout felt louder than any argument. One evening, Ryan showed up at my apartment again. Not restless this time, resigned. "She ended it," he said. I stepped aside to let him in. "She said she can't build a future with someone who doesn't know himself." His voice was flat, stripped of defensiveness. I wanted to feel vindicated. Instead, I felt tired. "I never wanted to hurt her," Ryan added. "I know." He looked at me, searching for something, comfort, absolution, maybe even hope. "Do you regret it?" he asked. The question lingered in the air, fragile and dangerous. I thought about the cabin. The rain. The moment his hand curled around mine. I thought about Sophie's kindness. About the friendship we'd built over years. "I regret how it happened," I said honestly. "I regret who it hurt." Quote, "But you don't regret me," Ryan pressed. I exhaled slowly. "I regret that it cost us what we had." Ryan absorbed that quietly. For a moment, it felt like we were standing on another edge, one that could lead back into something reckless or forward into something unknown. His eyes softened, the same vulnerability that had drawn me in at the cabin resurfacing. "We could figure it out," he said carefully. "Without labels, without pressure." The offer sounded less like courage and more like fear of being alone. "I won't be your in-between," I replied. "You need to figure yourself out without me filling the gaps." The truth settled between us, painful but steady. Ryan nodded slowly, understanding more than he wanted to. "You're really walking away. I think we both need to." He stood there for a moment, as if memorizing the version of us that still existed. Then he gave a small, defeated smile. "I don't know what I'd do without you," he said again. This time, I didn't let the words pull me closer. You'll figure it out, I answered. After he left, the apartment felt quieter than usual, but not empty. There's a difference between losing someone and losing yourself. I had come dangerously close to the second. Ryan had been my best friend. Maybe he always would be in some corner of my memory. But I refused to become someone's secret, someone's confusion, someone's unfinished decision. Some lines, once crossed, reveal who you are. And sometimes, walking away is the only way to finally stand still.